Hi all, it's
Okay.
Rabbi Rose. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, my apologies for the delay. Sort of managing the chaos of living at home.
Rabbi, you want to start your video?
Their devices to please do so, because that way we won't be interrupted by the random sounds of the various household distractions that come up. And here's what I want to do over the course of this call. I first of all want to just sort of lay out where we are, and I'm going to share some. I hope to share some texts, if I can figure out how to do that, and share some teachings, and then also there will be opportunities for people to share their own thoughts and to ask questions as well, which we will do via chat. So. First of all, I want to thank you for being part of this and for taking the opportunity to do this. This is an extraordinary time, as we all know, and I feel very blessed to be able to take advantage of some of the opportunities we have to gather in different ways. So bear with me as I just figure out how to, on this very limited screen space I have, how to connect with you. So here's what I want to say to you. First of all, in case there are folks who are on the call who are not part of the Shiri Torah community, I doubt there are very many, but I just want to say that I'm Rabbi Josh Rose. I'm the rabbi at Congregation Shiri Torah. And this call is about a couple of things. This is about acknowledging that we're in some very unsettling times, some difficult times, and reflecting on that together, and kind of naming that and talking about some of the challenges. But primarily, I want to use this time to talk about what it means to find hope and to imagine a path forward for ourselves as individuals and as a community. Because my mind has been like all of you, I think, focused on just the daily anxieties and the daily confusions and the seemingly moment by moment, hour by hour, day by day, new realities that we have to adapt to. But also I have a lot of reasons for enthusiasm and hope, and I want to share that with you. I'm seeing a couple of texts that people can't see me. I want to make sure people can hear and see me. Are people able to see me right now? You cannot see me. Aha, okay, I'm getting a no. So 1 second. How about now? Okay, my apologies. So my apologies for that. So now we're off to the races. So what I want to do first of all is I want to share with you for a moment why it is that I chose the particular title that I chose for this, which is a time to gather. And I want to do that by, if it's possible to do so, by sharing a document with you. So if you'll give me 1 second, and I'll say that as I'm looking for this, what I want to just say is that one of the things I'm going to talk about tonight is the fact that we're being called upon to find different ways to connect and to use technology in a different way. And so, you know, I've certainly used Zoom a lot, but I have not used Zoom so much for teaching online. And so as I sort of figure out how to do this, there's going to be a delay here and there as I figure out how to share documents online. So, excuse me, that I have online. So give me 1 second here. Are people familiar? I know that some of you are familiar with Kohelet. with what is known in English as Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes has this uh, beautiful passage that we read at funerals, and some of you will know because it is there are passages of Kohelet, of Ecclesiastes, that have made their way into various folk songs um, that some of you have heard. But what I want to focus on is there's a particular part of Kohelet in which Kohelet names the fact that there is a time to throw stones and a time to gather pardon me, and a time to gather stones together. And it's from that passage of Kohelet that I took the title for this. And you need to give me just one moment to find this document that I'm not able to find on my desktop here. So give me a sec. Okay, can folks, now you're seeing that. Well, if I can't figure out a way to do this, I'm gonna abandon this, but in one moment, because I don't want to make you wait, but give me one moment here. So let me say this to you, that in Ecclesiastes, it says that there's a time for throwing stones, as I said, and a time for gathering stones together. And there's a very, very beautiful teaching that says that what Kohelet means, what Ecclesiastes is referring to when it says that there's a time to gather stones together, is that it actually refers to this beautiful passage in the prophets that imagines that though the Jews are scattered throughout the whole world currently in the state of galut, in the state of exile, that at some point God is going to gather them together. And there's this beautiful image in the prophets in which the Jewish people are imagined as stones, as beautiful precious stones on a crown. And they're set in that crown and sort of lifted up and exalted. So from the image of stones being cast to the ground or cast away, the tradition or in the prophets transforms this image into the idea of those beautiful stones being gathered together as a symbol of unity and togetherness and elevation. And so I want us to think about, though we are living at a time of loss and change and difficulty, I think that we need to imaginatively in our hearts, first and foremost, picture the possibility of our being together, even though the world looks so different, and even though this is such a challenging time. So I wanted to start with that image, and I'm going to try to find on my desktop these texts that I want to share with you, excuse me. And I don't quite know why, and maybe somebody who's clever can share with me on chat why I'm not able to pull up a document from my desktop through this. And anybody know how I can do that? Okay. One moment. All right, if I can, it's just not letting me, every possibility is not working. So 1 second. Yeah, that's not actually the document I'm trying to share with you. 1 sec. Okay. I think are people able to see this, what I'm now sharing on the screen? No, okay, I apologize, and actually just figured out what the problem is. Give me 1 second. I practiced this earlier, and with Jemmy, and it worked, and now I guess I must have done something different. So I'm very sorry, and we'll be up and at 'em here in 1 second. So thank you for your patience and understanding. Of course, I'm presuming your patience and understanding, which I may not have, but I'm just going to go ahead and imagine that you're being patient and understanding. Give me 1 sec. Okay, we'll do it like this. Okay, are folks able to see that? Okay. So with that in mind, I want to do the following. Just going to get my notes in front of me, and then we are going to be set. Hold on. I apologize for the sloppiness, but we're all kind of adjusting to a new reality here, and I'm doing the same thing. Okay, so are you all looking at these texts with me? Yes? Okay, so this is what I want to share with you. First of all, I want to share that I shared that Ecclesiastes text, and what I want to say now to you is that I want to say that right now all of us are dealing with a time of really great difficulty and disorder. First of all, in some ways, this is a time of really terrible fear because we don't know what's happening with our health system. We don't know what's happening with the health of our own families. We're anxious about the economy. It's a time of the unknown. Uh, Reading the news, as I alluded to earlier, it seems that things are changing from day to day, and sometimes from hour to hour. And so that sense of not knowing where things go next, I think, is incredibly challenging, just in and of itself. And in addition, we don't know, I think we all have a sense of anxiety because we don't know what the world looks like going forward. We don't know what our personal lives look like going forward. We financially, economically, in terms of health, sometimes we have worries. We don't know what our Jewish communal institutions look like going forward. I'll just share personally one of the things that Hannah and I are struggling with is that we have an Airbnb. We rent out our basement as an Airbnb, and that Airbnb is not extra income for us. It's how we kind of afford to live in our home. It's how we pay our mortgage. And as you can imagine, all of the Airbnb rentals have completely disappeared. And so, of course, that affects us financially quite directly and significantly. In addition, like many of you, there are people in my own life who are vulnerable. Um, my mother would be considered among the vulnerable population. Some of you on this phone call are in the vulnerable population. So I don't want to belabor it, except just to say that for all of us, this is really a time of tremendous challenge. And I think that in the face of that, what we have to do is to be aware, first of all, of our own responses to that, and then try to figure out what does it look like to move forward and um, to envision a world where we're not only responding to the difficulties and the fears, but we're envisioning and creating a world together where there are new possibilities. So, with that in mind, I wanted to help us frame the conversation with a couple of Jewish texts, and also to share with you how it is that our synagogue is going to be responding to some of these challenges. So I'm going to do that in the following way. I want to look first of all. I want to sort of step back and look at what it is that the community is doing to respond to this, and just give you a sense of that. And then I want to talk a little bit about what our own shul is doing. First of all, I want you to know, as I'm sure you already feel in your hearts, that all of us are in this together. One of the, I guess, silver linings of this experience is the shared sense, not just across the city and not just across the country, but globally, that all of us are responding to something together. And that sense of togetherness is very, very pervasive in the Jewish world. And the rabbis are talking to each other, and different communal leaders are talking to each other about how to support one another and how to come together. I don't want to give, I don't want to spend time giving great details about it, but I will just tell you that over the next few days, the Federation is going to articulate its plan for supporting Jewish communal institutions and supporting individuals in a way that's going to be very, very powerful and hope inspiring. Jemmy and I were on a phone call together this morning with other Jewish communal leaders that was convened by Mark Blattner of the Federation. And it was a wonderful phone call in which they were sharing their plans and their leadership to help support the community in very material ways that you'll be hearing about over the next several days. I also want you to know that Jemmy, who I think almost all of you probably have met or know, who is our executive director, has just been awesome in responding on the staff level and the board leadership level and to congregate needs, and it's just been fabulous. So I want you to know that your leadership, the staff leadership, is talking daily about how we respond to the needs of our congregational community and the institutional needs, and trying to problem solve and to look beyond the present moment. So I thank Jemmy for her leadership. I also want you to know that the board, which is led by Daniel Petcher, who is the president of the congregation, has also been great in setting aside the kind of normal agenda, the typical agenda, and trying to figure out what challenges are presented by this moment and how do we respond to those challenges for the shul, and also what opportunities are there. And so we're convening a special leadership team made up of some of the members of the board, the executive team of the board, and a committee that had been working on strategic development for the board. And we're going to be convening and talking about what do these new and challenging times lay before us, and also what are the opportunities for the synagogue to serve the community and to adjust. So I want you to be aware that those conversations are happening. Just to put it out there, frankly, this is as it is for each of us individually and for the Jewish community more broadly, for our synagogue, this is of course going to be a time of great challenges, and the financial difficulties. I want to remind folks to please mute your, to please put your microphone on mute. As you can imagine the financial challenges for the synagogue that are posed by the current circumstances. And so, those are things that we're addressing, and we've got some, as I've said to people before, just a crackerjack board, an incredible group of leaders at this moment of the shul in the shul's history, and those folks are convening to look for opportunities and to address those challenges. So I do want you to be aware of that. I want to say specifically that we are going to be, as a first kind of elemental step in terms of how is it that people are going to connect to the synagogue, we are going to be doing a couple of things. We are going to be starting with this coming Monday. We are going to begin making services available online. And then, so every week as part of our weekday minion, we have Monday, Thursday, and Sunday services. And so we are going to, people are going to be able to access those services through Zoom, and we'll be sending out further details about that so that people can connect to services in that way. And in addition, we're going to be streaming Shabbat services starting not this Shabbat, but the following Shabbat. And Jemmy's been hard at work on addressing the technological dimensions of that. I'm sure you know that there are other synagogues across the country and within our own community that are doing that, and we're going to be doing that as well. Again, we'll be sending out a separate communication as to how people will connect to that and how we'll kind of navigate the service together and how people will follow along. Of course, the services are going to be a little bit different, and they're going to be different not only because people are online, but also the services themselves. There are ways that the services will just have to change because of the fact that it is a virtual gathering and that it's online. And I suspect that we will discover within this some possibilities that are really interesting and wonderful along the way. And who knows, maybe there's some changes to the service that we'll face that we'll end up keeping because they're just wonderful changes to the service. There are limits to what we can do as a praying community as part of the minyan. So for example, without an actual minyan of people gathered, we can't say the blessings over the Torah. We can't read from a Sefer Torah. There are certain prayers that we can't say, and including the mourner's Kaddish. But we are going to find ways to connect to all of those things in different ways. So for example, we will read from Torah. We will read from a Chumash. I suspect we're not going to, at least for the first couple of weeks, we're probably not going to have a full Kriya. We're not going to have a full Torah service reading. But we will read from a Chumash, and we will have opportunities for teaching from the Chumash. In terms of the mourner's Kaddish, I just want to, though I don't want to make this conversation too much about details, I do want to say that I know that there are rabbis within the conservative movement who have said that in the absence, that even in the absence of an actual physical minyan of 10 adult Jewish people, that those congregations are still saying the mourner's Kaddish. Based on the reading and the research I've done thus far, I'm not satisfied that that is halakhically permissible within a conservative Jewish context. And honestly, I'm still learning about this, so it's possible that my position will change. So I want to be really, really clear with people about this. So first of all, there will be opportunities for mourners to say a prayer of mourning during the weekday minyan and during Shabbat. And I'm looking into this question halachically as to various ways that we can address it so that mourners have a way to say the mourner's Kaddish. In addition to that, we are also going to be sharing with you how you can say the mourner's Kaddish by connecting to a community where there is actually a physical gathering of 10 people. There are various places across the globe and across the country, there are still actual minyanim gathering. And so it is halakhically permissible for somebody who's streaming in or zooming into a minyan where there are 10 people to say Kaddish and to answer Amen in those contexts. And so we will be laying out those possibilities before you. And as I said, if through my own learning, I come across a way that we are able to say Kaddish as a community, even though it's totally virtual, then of course I'll be sharing that with people. So again, there will be a separate communication about these various changes to the prayer services and how it is that you can plug into them. And frankly, I'm actually really looking forward to this and the creativity that I think it will impose upon us, and the doors of creativity that become open to us when we will daven this way in a community. And I think it's going to be kind of powerful and special to connect in that way. So I'm looking forward to that. So again, that is going to start. The first of these will be at our Monday morning minyan, and information to follow about that. I want to share. This is a little bit of a different tone, but I want to just share one thing with you. Hold on. Let me see if I can get it for you. Can people see that? So this is, I don't know if Miles Hochstein is on the call, but I want to, on this Zoom meeting, but I want to thank Miles. He posted this to Facebook. And obviously what the cartoon refers to is that now that families are cooped up together, like our own, it's a sort of a humorous take on it. For those who can't see it, it's a family gathered around the table, and it says, okay, let's find out if we like each other. So my family's discovered that we do actually like each other, but this has not been without its challenges. Our kids are in school, enrolled in school. PJA has done an incredible job. The Portland Jewish Academy has done an incredible job of making it possible for kids to take classes virtually from home. And so there's a sort of forced intimacy that can sometimes be really, really challenging. But what the reason I wanted to share with this cartoon with you is because I think that in some ways this moment imposes upon synagogue communities a great challenge of trying to figure out, to ask that same question, okay, let's see if we like each other. And what I mean by that is, in some ways, our community is being tested as never before in ways that are very, very beautiful and very, very powerful. And I want to lay before you the challenge that I think we face by looking at a Jewish text. Whoopsie, hold on one sec. Let's get that back. So in the book of Exodus, as the Israelites approach Mount Sinai, the Torah says this: on the third new moon, after the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt, on that very day, they entered the wilderness of Sinai. They had journeyed from Rephidim and came to the wilderness of Sinai, where they camped in the wilderness. And then the Hebrew then says, Vayachan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar. Israel set up camp there in front of or across from the mountain, and Moses went up to God. And what's interesting about the Hebrew there that gives rise to the teaching that I'm about to share is that it is, this text is well known to many of you. And it's interesting because it's singular. So first it says Vayachanu b'midbar, that they encamped, and that verb is plural. They encamped in the wilderness. And that's as we would expect. It's a large group of people. And it says that they camped in the plural in the wilderness. But then right after that, it says sort of repetitively, Vayachan Sham, and Israel set up camp there. And there, the second time it's used, the verb is singular. So there's this curious question: why is the verb singular, even if it's talking about a large number of people? And Rashi, the Torah commentator, brings a very, very beautiful and very famous midrash in which he says, answering his own question, why is the verb singular? Because they were ke'ish echad belev echad. They were like one person with one heart. So I love this text for a bunch of reasons, and we can't spend very much time on it, but I'll just say one of the powerful messages of this teaching is that remember that this is the moment that precedes the revelation. And so it's not only a beautiful imagined moment of the people being together in perfect unity, but it also suggests that only when we are together in unity can we actually receive Torah, because this is the moment that precedes the revelation of the Torah. So that somehow in the Jewish people coming together in such a beautiful way, to be totally unified like a single person, that was the moment that allowed for the revelation of Torah. And so I want to lay before us this challenge. The word community is thrown around a lot in Jewish communities. And it's a word that I use a lot. It's a word that has become sort of a catchphrase for a gathering of Jews at their best, and also a catchphrase for what it is that synagogues can do. But I also know that it actually is very hard to realize community. It's very hard to make community real, to take it away from the realm of being a tagline and a kind of bumper sticker phrase, and to make it manifest. So I want us to hold out for ourselves the challenge of becoming, during this time of incredible difficulty and separation, of actually using that the challenge to find opportunities to become Ki'ish echad belev echad, to become like a single person with a single heart. So to take this out of the realm of the speculative and philosophical, and to make it more concrete, let me give you an example of what I mean. Earlier today, I talked with Annette Dempsey, who could not be on the Zoom call tonight, but she is an amazing member of our congregation who is the head of the Chesed Committee. And the Chesed Committee has for some time been reaching out to people who have a simcha, a cause for celebration in their life, or more commonly, reaching out to people who are facing a difficulty of an illness or in the wake of a death, and finding ways to comfort those people. In the past, we've brought meals to people who are in shiva, or who are sick at home, and we've helped do errands for them to bring a little light and a little life and a little community and a little love to them. I think that we have the challenge and the opportunity to amplify that work and to expand it. And this is what I was talking to Annette and to Jemmy about earlier today. So I want to ask you to be volunteers in this work. And I'm going to ask you to email me or Jemmy. My email address is rabbirose@sheritorah.org, and Jemmy's is executive director at sheritorah.org. And let us know if you could volunteer to help out with this work. So let me describe what this work is a little bit. First of all, we don't know exactly what it's going to involve. A group of leaders is gathering to figure out what is possible and what is safe in this time of illness and vulnerability. But what we're going to do is we're going to reach out to every member of the congregation, and we are going to, first of all, just check in. And for some people, that phone call will just be maybe an introduction to somebody they hadn't met before, or maybe a wonderful way to hear a familiar voice, and just let people know that we're thinking about one another, and we're checking in, and we're connecting in that way. But in addition, we want to use that opportunity to try to find out, are there needs that are not being met, and is there help that people need? So just as an example, especially for an elderly or sick member of the congregation who might be stuck at home and needs help having medicine or groceries brought to them, or maybe there's a person who's in real dire financial situation who needs some financial assistance, or maybe it's somebody who's really struggling emotionally or spiritually and wants to be connected to the rabbi. Sometimes the folks don't always reach out when they're facing those difficulties. In fact, usually they don't. So we want to be able to reach out to people by phone and to kind of assess the needs of the community. Now, I do want to be careful here and reiterate what I just said a moment ago, is that we're not yet ready to articulate all of the things that are possible. And some of the things that I mentioned may not be possible because of somebody's health situation. It may not be feasible to deliver groceries to them. We haven't thought through what are the risks to our members with all of that, and we're thinking through what's possible. But we do want to be able to respond and to connect to every member of the congregation. As I said, either with just a hello, how are you, or with something that might go beyond that. The Chesed, the incredible Chesed committee, as it's constituted now, does not have the bandwidth to do this on the scale that we need to do it, because we can't become a single person with a single heart in a kind of half-hearted way. We need to do this with a full effort and a lot of resources. And so I'm asking you to volunteer for this work. Again, we don't know the extent of it, but we're not going to put an unrealistic burden on anyone. So I don't imagine that there's going to be a personal tax that's too great for anybody to bear here. So I'm asking you to reach out and email and tell us that you're willing to help us become a community that is ka'ish echad b'lev echad, like one person with one heart. So that's one example of how we become unified, is just by amplifying our acts of chesed within the community. In addition to that, I want you to know that all of the teaching that I currently do, we're going to move all of that online. But beyond that, we're going to be looking for opportunities to use this interface and other interfaces to expand the teaching that we have, the teaching to adults, adult learning. I'm imagining the opportunities for brief lunch and learns for people who want to set aside a little bit of time for Torah learning, and for additional communal conversations to connect in this way. We're also going to be reaching out to religious school families over the next week to find out how we can serve the needs of families who are educating their kids. I think that there are opportunities that we had never considered about how to engage kids in an even deeper way than we're able to in a normal religious school setting on Shabbat. And we're going to be asking parents for what their needs are, what their ideas are, and how to engage learners. And as is quite obvious, as you can see all of the beautiful faces assembled on this call, this is a beautiful way to connect members with one another, which not only opens up the possibility of Chavruta learning, which we've already done through Project Zug for those who take advantage of the technology to meet through the computer, but it also makes it very, very easy for our many talented congregants and knowledgeable congregants to also engage in teaching in a very, very simple way. So I'm not going to volunteer anyone at this moment, but there are very knowledgeable and experienced teachers who I know are on the call right now. So if you're in that category, I want you to consider yourself invited to engage in one of these teachings. Because as we all know, Torah is ultimately for a shul. Torah is what really binds us and connects us, and we can find very beautiful ways to become like a single person with a single heart through this technology. So I wanted to share that idea with you as well. If you're interested in teaching, by the way, please just send me an email and we'll find, or give me a call, and we'll find ways to do that. So in short, before I offer kind of a closing text, and then I want to see what questions and ideas and suggestions you might have. In short, I want you to know that the synagogue is looking at the current situation, taking it very seriously, and working with other communal leaders and with our own lay leaders to address financial and other challenges to the institution. We're very mindful of how we guide ourselves through this, keeping the future of the synagogue secure. So that's one thing I wanted you to know. In addition, what I want to reiterate is that we are, to the extent possible, we're going to take all of our regular programming, whether it's tefillah or learning, and we're going to make it accessible online. And then in addition to that, we're looking for ways to take the current, what might look like current limitations in our communal life, and look for opportunities to actually expand the work that we do in new and creative ways to engage even more people and to find more meaningful opportunities for teaching and connection. And then finally, through the expanded work of Chesed that we want to do, we're looking for opportunities to really strengthen the bonds of community, and to allow the Jewish values that we so often keep stored up in our hearts to have them manifest in the world through beautiful acts of really making a difference in the lives of members of our congregation, and of course members of the broader community beyond just our congregation. So that's a brief summary of what I've said, and then I want to just close, if you'll indulge me, with another teaching, with these two passages that come from a single story in the Talmud. And because I want to use them as a frame for thinking about how is it that we respond to terrible difficulty in our lives and to changed circumstances in our lives. So let me set this up, because this story is in the Talmud is so powerful. The background of this part of the Talmud is the siege of Jerusalem by the Romans. And in just before the year 70, the Romans gather around Jerusalem, and they lay siege to the city, and so it becomes cut off from the rest of the world, and it becomes and there's a famine that unfolds in the city, and eventually the Romans, as we know, destroy the temple. And in the destruction of the temple, with the destruction of the temple rather, there becomes such a profound change in the world of Jewish life that it's really something that we can't imagine, because the temple was the only center of Jewish communal life. It was the only proper religious center, I should say, of Jewish communal life. It was the place that people went to make offerings to Hashem. It was the place that people went to fulfill their obligations during what we call the Chagim, that is the festivals. It was the place where you would seek atonement, and where the Jewish people could connect to God. The Jewish world looked vastly different then than it does now. And so when the Romans destroyed the temple, Jewish life as it had been imagined and understood was completely toppled. So the destruction of Jerusalem, of the physical structure of Jerusalem, also represented a complete destruction of Jewish religious life, Jewish cultural life, and Jewish social life. There was no other way to imagine how Jews could come together and could fulfill their obligations as Jews and could celebrate religiously as Jews. And so these texts that I'm about to share with you briefly take place against that background just at the moment before the temple was destroyed. So the setup of this of text number 5 here is the following. The Romans have now surrounded the city, and so there's a famine that's spreading through the city. So I'll just read it. As a result of the Roman siege, there was a famine in Jerusalem. Marta bat Betos was a wealthy woman in Jerusalem. She said to her assistant, she was wealthy enough to have an assistant, "Go bring me fine flour." By the time he went, the fine flour was already sold. He came to her and he said, "There's no fine flour, but there's ordinary flour." And she said to him, "Go then and bring me ordinary flour." But by the time he went, now also the ordinary flour was also sold. So, and this pattern repeats. I've saved you the kind of repetitive text. The pattern repeats. There's no ordinary flour, then there's no coarse flour. And then finally she learns that there's not even barley flour, which is sort of considered sort of the least desirable. So he comes back and he tells her that. And she had just removed her shoes, the story tells us, which seems like an odd detail at first. She just had removed her shoes to settle in, but upon learning that there was no flour at all, she said, "I'll go out and see if I can find something to eat." On the way, sorry, it says "won the way," but it should say "on the way," she stepped on some dung, which stuck to her foot, and overcome by disgust, she died. So kind of a grim story. And this story just precedes the one that I'm going to share with you in a moment. And so it's worth thinking about the contrast, and therefore thinking about what this story means. The worldview of Marta, and if we were not on a conference call with so many people, I would love to hear your take on this and your interpretations. But I think that she has first of all, she has a reactive worldview. So she's not thinking ahead. She repeats the same pattern over and over again. Go get me the flour. It's not there. Go get me the less good flour. It's not there. Go get me the coarsest flour. It's not there. She's not thinking ahead. She's totally reactive. And her reactivity creates the situation in which she eventually finds herself. The second thing to say is that her worldview is one of scarcity. All she can imagine is what she doesn't have and what she yearns for and can't get. And that puts her on this cycle of increasing disappointment. And the third thing is she's so unprepared to deal with the new world that she has to face that she can only see it as filled with filth and danger and disappointment. And so her death comes about because, literally because she steps in dung, but I think symbolically what that means is she enters the world in such a way that it only presents it to her, she can only see it as a place of danger and disgust. And that is how she experiences the Roman siege of Jerusalem. So that reactive worldview, one of scarcity and one of anxiety and fear, leads where it leads. But by contrast, there's the very famous story of Yochanan ben Zakkai, who sneaks out of Jerusalem to go meet the Roman general, who says to Yochanan, essentially, I will let you out if you sort of leave me alone and you don't try to persuade me against destroying Jerusalem. I will grant you your wish. So tell me what you wish. And this little passage you see here is his wish. And when you look at it, you don't see the power in this incredible wish, but there's something in there that I'll explain to you. But what I want to start with is reading it to you and then we'll talk about it. So Yochanan ben Zakkai sneaks out of the city, and that's notable because the Jewish zealots are keeping people in the city. So the Romans are surrounding Jerusalem. They're not letting anything in, and they're starving the city. But the zealots are keeping everybody within the city of Jerusalem, so none of the Jews can leave. Yochanan Zakkai, as I said, sneaks out to have this conversation, this negotiation with the Roman overlord. And it says this, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, so one of the great sage of his time, said to the Roman leader, he says, give me Yavne, which is a city in Jerusalem, give me Yavne and its sages, and do not destroy it, and spare the dynasty of Rabban Gamliel. So in other words, spare this other family of brilliant rabbinic sages. And lastly, give me doctors to heal Rabbi Sadok, who's yet another great rabbi. So in other words, give me the city of Yavne. Let us gather there and let me have sages. Let me have rabbinic sages to go there. And what's implicit in this is Yochanan is saying to him, you are going to destroy Jerusalem. I accept that you're going to destroy the city and you're going to destroy the temple. You are going to destroy the way of life and everything that the Jewish people know. But in exchange, I'm going to rebuild in Yavne. And the world that Yochanan ben Zakkai builds from Yavne is the world of the rabbis. That's where they gather and they interpret the Torah and they create a new reality for the Jewish people. That's where we begin to get Torah study, communal gathering for prayer. That's where the prayers as we know them will eventually, from there, will eventually be ordered. In other words, Yochanan ben Zakkai leaves behind Jerusalem. It's heartbreaking that he leaves behind Jerusalem, but what he does in doing that is he's able to create a totally new reality within which the Jewish world flourishes. So instead of having a view of scarcity, he has a view of blessing, and he looks to find the blessing even in the greatest imaginable difficulty. And instead of being reactive, having a reactive worldview, he has a creative worldview or a proactive worldview in which he's looking to rebuild not the old world, but to rebuild Jewish life in a totally new way. And I just want to suggest, lahavdil, to compare our situation is nothing compared to what our ancestors faced, obviously. But we are in a time of great difficulty, and we are going to have to choose how we want to react to that. And if we can focus on the hidden blessings, if we can focus on the challenge to tend to the needs of one another and to connect with one another in different ways, I know that we will rebuild in ways we haven't even imagined and create new opportunities for learning and for connection with one another. And I really want to just leave you with that hope that all of us can be like Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and find in our challenges incredible blessings and opportunities. So I thank you for indulging me with what turned out to be somewhat disordered and a little bit of a long presentation, but I wanted to see if you have comments and questions and ideas of your own that you'd like to share through the chat feature. Some of you are going to know how to do that quite easily, and some of you are going to have to explore on your screen for how you do that. I can tell you that if you see on your menu, if you scroll over where it says more, and you then go to chat, it'll then pull up a box that invites you to type what you want. So having said that, are there folks who want to ask questions or throw out ideas or possibilities? Okay, I'm not seeing anything pop up.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
So someone asked, when is the next one of these gatherings besides Minyan starting on Monday morning?
Oh, great question. The short answer is that at this moment, I don't know, but very shortly, over the next couple of days, we're going to be sending out opportunities for learning. I'll just give you a taste of one idea is to, I actually want to do a study of what is the meaning of community. Why is it that we can't say the Kaddish? So I want to explore what Jewish community means, by looking at some of the teachings about why rabbis differ as to whether the Kaddish can be said absent an actual physical gathering. So that's one short class that I have in mind, and there are going to be lunch and learns, as I said. But at this moment, I can't share with you the schedule because we haven't landed on one yet. But we'll send that schedule out before the middle of next week for sure.
Okay, there's also, I know Amanda Leader says she has a question. And Amanda, if you want to unmute and ask. And then Rafi asked, will there be an email going out to the whole community inviting people to volunteer for the Chesed Committee opportunity? There will be something coming out from us. Also, there's going to be community communication coming out this Friday with updates on Sunday about a community-wide portal to try to organize volunteers in addition to what the different congregations are doing. So as someone said today, isn't it better to get 3 phone calls than to not get one at all? So we might duplicate some efforts, but we make sure everyone gets a touch. So go ahead, Amanda.
Hi, Rabbi. Can you hear me?
Hi, Amanda Leader.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Good to see everybody. What is the origin of the restrictions, like the rules about Minyan? Like, where does that originate and why? Because when you're thinking about how to adapt now, right? You kind of are, it's curious, why we're limited and why, just when and where and why did this,
Sure.
yeah.
No, it's a great question. So I'm going to give just a very short answer now because I am going to be offering sometime over the next several days. I'm going to be offering a class, a brief, shiur, a brief lesson where we'll delve into that a little more. But and one other prefatory comment is I want to be very, very clear. When we do gather and we get to the place where we normally would say the Kaddish, there will be a moment set aside for those who are in mourning. And keep in mind that I'm also saying Kaddish as well. So there's, this is not something that I take lightly at all because I'm saying Kaddish for my father right now. So there will be other prayers, other readings that, and we'll have a moment for people to honor those that they love and remember. The short version is, all of the, obviously the rabbis never imagined a time in which we would be able to do what we're currently doing and to gather virtually, but they did imagine scenarios in which there's an individual who cannot get to the rest of the community. And in the Gemara, in the Talmud, the rabbis articulate what is possible and what is not possible to do in those circumstances. So, as with a lot of cases in which we're trying to apply Talmudic law or Talmudic scenarios to the current situation, we often do it by way of analogy. And so the short answer is it comes from the Gemara and from the law codes. But I'll also say that this is not the first time this question has come up. And so the reason that I said so kind of confidently that I don't believe, in my understanding of the halakha, that the Kaddish can be said absent a group of physical people that a caller could then dial into, is because several years ago the conservative movement actually did entertain this question. And their answer at that time, for the rabbis who were tasked with coming up with Jewish law, their answer, I think it was like 5, 6, 7 years ago, they answered this. They considered it, they looked at the sources, and they made the considered judgment that it's not possible to say the mourner's Kaddish without a physical minyan that you can dial into. There are people who have argued that the technology has changed so much that halakhic decision needs to be revisited. And so there are people working on that. And as I said, I'm still studying the issue, but that's the short-ish answer.
Are there other questions from people?
So let me, if there are not, then I want to say one thing in closing. Initially, I was very well. I was a little frustrated with my own screw ups at the beginning of the call, and I apologize to you for that. And I'm belaboring this not because I'm overwhelmed with such an enormous sense of guilt, but because I think that we are going to have to really nail this. And nail online learning and davening together. We need to do all of this at a very, very high level. And I guess I demonstrated for all of you what it looks like to not do that. And so I'm saying that not to make a joke, but first of all of us are kind of scrambling to adjust. My kids, Hannah was on a multi-hour phone call and my kids are like all over the place. So I was late getting on and therefore rushed. But I'm belaboring this because I want you to know that as we deliver this learning, it's my aspiration to do this at an incredibly high level and to make it kind of seamless and extremely comfortable for people to engage with learning or davening in this different context. And, it's going to take some adjustment and a little bit of time to get there. But I just want to recognize that our goal is to do this at the highest level so we don't have those kinds of inconveniences that can so often interfere with the content. Are there any other comments or questions?
There was just a request for, and I answered in the chat, we talked about this earlier, Rabbi, maybe Cantor leading a virtual Nigun singing circle via Zoom. So as I said, nothing is off the table. There have been some great questions and ideas coming through on the chat. Keep them coming. We're all learning together of what we can accomplish sitting on the floor of our bedroom on a Wednesday night.
Thank you all for being part of this conversation. And again, you can either email me or Jemmy your willingness to volunteer for this chesed work. But as Jemmy said, we will also be sending out a communication about that. And as I said, about all of our online opportunities for engagement. Thank you so much, everybody. Be healthy and stay safe. And please reach out to the synagogue if you yourself are in need of some kind of assistance, or just someone to talk to, or a rabbi to talk to. And we'll see you all soon. God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.